What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the weapon refines for Genny, Kinshi Hinoka, Arden, and Lewyn. And I'm going to be giving you guys my opinion and analysis on these refines as well as the builds which you could run with these. As always, if you guys do enjoy these kinds of analysis videos, I would really appreciate if you could take a second and subscribe and like. Just goes a long way helping out the channel. And with that said, I hope you guys do enjoy and let us begin.
There's no weapon better suited for taking down a flying target than a bow.
Kinshi Hinoka was the first bow flyer to be introduced in FEH, and she's definitely a big Hall of Forms menace, we all know. But outside of that game mode, she wasn't really all that impressive because she didn't have the highest attack stat to make full use out of the armor effectiveness, and her low defense definitely left her susceptible to a lot of the distant counter armor units. This weapon refine definitely tries to help her and makes her into a pretty good unit, honestly. This is a very good weapon refine, so she still has the effectiveness against armored units, but here, the drive attack which was present in her weapon, which was long outclassed, now has become joint drive attack and speed as the primary effect. So this is really good because not only she can support her allies but also support herself, and any kind of extra attack is always appreciated on a unit with an effective weapon. The weapon refine might seem really simple, but it's really good. It's essentially attack, speed, defense, rain, and this is like a trio rain, super rain even, because it has got the radius of 3 tiles, and it also debuffs 3 stats during the combat, which is really great. So this is always going to be active for Kinshi Hinoka, and she can also use this to support her allies, especially if you use it up with some other skills that also have 3 range. For example, Neo Plumeria's weapon, and it can also stack up with the Slotsy rain skills. Now rain skills just have 2 range compared to the 3 range, but still it could stack up against those kinds of foes. So it's a really good effect, and it also debuffs the foe for the attack stats. So this essentially gives her a bit more bulk, which again is much appreciated on someone like her who does not have very high defense. So effectively she can get +8 attack, +8 speed, +4 defense, and +4 resistance from this weapon, and also provide the same support to her allies. Overall, this weapon refine definitely tries to help Hinoka with her armor sling by giving her extra attack stat, and the extra speed is always appreciated in this kind of speed creep metagame. The attack debuff can help her survive hits from many of the distant counter foes, so that can always be useful. Kinshi Hinoka, even as a one-off copy, is actually a really good unit to be used in Arena Assault because you're going to be facing a lot of armors, you're going to be facing a lot of flyers, and she can do a pretty fantastic job. For a budget build, you could just run Fury 3 and Desperation. You definitely need Desperation in slot B because you want to deal with those armor units, and Goat Flyers is just amazing with the support that she can provide. So you ideally want to use her with more flyers to make them stronger. And if you want to invest heavily into her, then Sturdy Impact has always been a very strong slot A option for her, and it doesn't change here. You could also combine it with Speed Defense Rain, and Speed Defense Rain does stack up with the debuffs of her weapon, so that is really great. You're essentially debuffing the foe for -8 speed and -8 defense, which is absolutely amazing. You could run Glimmer or even Moonbow. Because we are debuffing the defense of the foe, Moonbow might seem a bit anti-synergetic with that, so Glimmer works out, but it's up to you. And you could also run a push skill in her slot A, which can help her get into the range of Desperation. Sturdy Impact does help her survive many of the distant counter armor units because of the extra defense, but if you don't really require that, then push skill is definitely an option. And if you're getting Speed Defense Rain from Jill, then it already comes as an option. Deadeye is also a very premium skill which you could make use of. It's a 3-turn special, and you could also use her with Fury 4 and Attack Speed Rain. So Claw does provide that, but Fury 4's bulk as well as Attack Speed Rain's attack debuff can help her survive a lot of the physical hits, and Fury does have good synergy with Desperation. So Sparrow is also an option. Now Joint Drive Attack might not seem very good option compared to Speed Defense Rain, but still I guess it's an option to support your allies and also to support Hinoka. And if you want to use her in Aether Raid's defense, she could be used in a Flyerball team. Flyerball teams have definitely died down, but in the Dark Season because of Hell and Triandra, they are definitely viable, and we do have some other flyers who have IO Shield weapons, so that could be worked out, and she can basically function as a ranged unit there, and she can definitely help the flyers get extra offenses or even defenses depending on what Slotsy skill you go for. Sturdy Impact is always going to be a necessity in Aether Raid's defense to idiot-proof your unit against the AI, and mostly you have seen Attack IV here because she is fast enough for most of the threats, and attack IV is going to be helping her do more damage against the armor units. But if you specifically want to use her in Ether Raid's defense, then speed might prove to be a bit useful because it's really easy to stack up speed for offensive players with using stuff like Peony. So that's why speed does help a lot. And even outside of a Fireball, she could still be a pretty good unit, again with sturdy impact. Aerobatics can help you with a mixed team, and speed defense rain is always going to be helpful. Quick and Pulse could be used with Deadeye to make it a 2-turn special, so that could be really good. And that can just help you pierce through a lot of the damage reduction shenanigans. Flame is a pretty common support unit which many people use, so that could definitely help you, and we do have many units who do have damage reduction weapons.
If I was a little bit quicker, I might have more luck with the ladies.
Arden was always a bit of a meme because of his polarizing stat spread of extremely low speed, extremely low resistance, but having the highest HP in the entire game while also having pretty good defense stat. So this weapon doesn't really save Arden in any way, but just makes him more fun. So Arden's blade lets him have a dual phase brave weapon effect, which is very strong because he has follow-up ring as an exclusive skill, which can let him get a follow-up attack in both phases. And using that, he can quad attack in both player phase and in the enemy phase, and that makes him a pretty fun unit to use. And he's also a free to play unit, so everyone can have access to him. Follow-up ring is really good for providing him utility in both phases. It doesn't really have the special cooldown acceleration like many of the fighter skills, but because Arden can quad attack and just attack so many times, he can still charge up the higher cooldown specials without any kind of trouble. So follow-up ring basically ends up being one of the best, if not the best, slot B skill for him, and he already has that, so that is really great. And the refined condition of this weapon is also really great because if he's above half health, then he gets +4 attack and +6 defense during the combat, and he also inflicts the guard effect on the foe. So having a healing special or just having him with a healer is really good, and defensively he's very stocky, so it's not really hard to keep him above half health. And the guard effect is extremely good for such a slow unit like Arden, who's always gonna get doubled by every single unit, and because he can quad attack, he could charge the specials of the foes. So having this guard effect can basically protect him from getting nuked by a lot of specials, and that is just so helpful to him as a tank. So Arden still has the same weakness, he's got very low resistance and speed, so any kind of decent mage is going to be able to easily destroy him, but still he's a very fun unit because of the quad attacks in both phases. And Arden being a very hardworking, honest, and endearing man, he is quite easy to build on a budget as well. He can let you use Fire Boost, Fire Boost in 2021 because of his high HP. Like, there are not going to be too many units who are going to be having as much HP as him. And this can be a pretty consistent option in both phases. It's a dual phase slot A skill, so that just works out from a 4-star Ross, and that's definitely pretty amazing that he can make one of the most useless family of skills in FEH quite viable because of his high HP. So you could use that, and Attack Smoke can also help him be a bit tanky. Ignis is going to be the special of choice here because Ignis can be triggered in both phases. You could run Bonfire if you want to trigger Bonfire against like a ranged unit or a unit who cannot counterattack back. But more often than not, Ignis is going to be providing you with more damage output, and it's generally going to be the better option. He could also be used with HP Attack 2 from Valbar if you don't want to use like a boost skill. And the extra HP can help you run Panic Ploy, and this could be used in Arena Assault for sure. And the quad attacks are really good for facing many of the green threats and even the ranged threats, so that can work out on a budget with armored boots. Now, because he has God, the guard effect, he can be used in Rooker Siege as a fantastic green Rooker Slayer. Only for green Rookers because he doesn't have the highest attack at like unmerged, so that's why you want to buff him up with like attack tactic, have like 3 dancers who all have drive attack and stuff like that. So with Triangle Adept and Astra, he can definitely be a green Rooker Slayer. Next time we get Rooker Sieges, definitely try him out. He can definitely work out pretty well. The guard effect is going to be stopping the Rooker from charging any kind of their specials, which is really good. And then we have got the Distant Fall build. It's pretty obvious on him. He does have high defense, he doesn't have very high resistance, so Distant Fall makes him just retaliate back to dagger units and bow units, which he can easily take hits from, and Ignis is going to be the special of choice. You could also use him with Special Fighter. Now, as I said, Follow-Up Ring is a pretty good skill, which he already has got, but Special Fighter allows you to trigger Ignis twice in a single round of combat, and it can also help you basically retaliate back with Ignis on your second hit. So basically in the enemy phase, the enemy attacks you, charges up your special by 2, then you have your brave hit, you hit the first hit, you get Ignis charged up, and on the second hit, you just nuke them with Ignis. That's going to be taking out a lot of the mages. He does have pretty high HP, so he can at least survive like one hit from many of the mages. So that's going to be pretty good. And if somehow the opponent is able to survive that Ignis, then he could trigger that again if the foe is going to be doubling him. And he's going to be triggering the second Ignis on his 4th hit. So just double Ignis is going to be a pretty fun thing which you could do with Arden. Utilizing Special Fighter. This could be used with Distant Foil as well, but Distant Counter is also something that you could make use of at max investment. Again, Distant Counter can be used with Distant Defense. He doesn't really get any kind of help from his weapon in the resistance department, but because of his high HP stat and now the guard effect, it's a bit better for him against like green mages and stuff like that at the very least. Arden's high HP stat is a no-brainer for usage in Pawns of Loki, so as a plus 10 unit, you could be the MVP for a lot of your friends because HP is the most important stat in Pawns of Loki. It can help you score more, and Arden has got plenty of that, so you could go with the HP boon at plus 10 merch only if you want to use him for Pawns of Loki, and he can be a great frontliner honestly. Panic Ploy can basically help you panic that specific lane where he's going to be facing, and Follow-Up Ring and Ignis, Distant Counter all help him a lot. So he's a fantastic unit to use in Pawns of Loki, and people who do have plus and Ardents with this kind of build are going to be in high demand, trust me, because the HP is just ridiculous. You can easily reach 99 HP after like few trios. As we're getting higher and higher in Pawns of Loki in terms of tiers, it is really hard to go up the next tiers, so any kind of help with more scoring is going to be appreciated by your friends, and this can also work out for you. You could also use him with Attack Defense Unity. The 2 stats which he cares about most are Attack and Defense, and if he gets debuffed in those stats, then he's just gonna get rewarded. And this does work in both phases, which is fantastic with Follow-Up Ring. So Attack Defense Unity is a pretty good option, and because his weapon requires him to be above half health, a special like Ether can be a pretty nice thing for healing, and even though it's a high cooldown special, because he's going to be quad attacking, he can still trigger that. And boost skills are so uncommon when it comes to Sacred Seals, they can still be viable in my opinion with his high HP stat, especially with that 69 HP. Similar to the double bigness build which I showcased before, you could do the same but without Special Fighter and Distant Counter. So you could have a breath skill in Slotty, preferably Fierce Breath because it does help with his brave hits. You could have that and basically be able to have double Ignis in the enemy phase, which is going to be pretty strong. And you could use like a boost skill or just any kind of Sacred Seal. He does have pretty good Sacred Seal options, so any of those could work out if you're running Armor March in slot C. You could also use him as a solo armor unit. Not the most ideal thing, but I guess if you want to do like a unique thing, you could stack up double attack defense solo with armored stride, so that could work out, and it's going to be active in both phases, so that could definitely be pretty nice. You could also use him with Gale Force. And finally, I guess you could run a meme build like this, having Deflect Magic. This definitely used to be a thing back then, I think. So Deflect Magic could be used without Distant Counter. And you could just have Fortress Defense Rest to buff up both of his defenses. And that could definitely make his matchup a bit better against many of the mages, especially with the guard effect. So it's kind of a meme build, but still I guess it could work out because of Deflect Magic.
Lead the world warmly, gentle as a breeze. That's a noble way to live.
Lewyn is a 5-star lock green mage, and we do have a lot of competition when it comes to green mages, especially the premium ones, so this weapon refine couldn't have come at a better time. This definitely helps Lewyn a lot because it's a solid refine that makes him a very fast mage who can keep up with the speed creep that has been happening in FEH for quite some time now. Forseti did have the reverse desperation effect, but now the threshold is even better, so he just needs to be above 25% health to have the reverse desperation. So that's very powerful with his high speed, and with this weapon and its refine, he can basically get +8 attack and speed, which is really good. Again, as I said, for keeping up with the speed creep, and any kind of extra firepower is much appreciated. The weapon refine does have some interesting effects, so he has got penalty neutralization to his attack and speed if the foe is above 75% HP, and that is really good because a lot of times he's gonna get targeted by like chill speed or chill attack. Chill speed most definitely, and in general debuffs are pretty common, so debuff neutralization of any kind right now is a great thing in a metagame where debuffs are just so common. The final effect of his Refine is dull attack speed, so you can just ignore the attack and speed buffs of the foes, and ignoring the speed buffs is very important for his playstyle because he wants to double attack, so being able to ignore those buffs are going to be really good. Now, I don't know if this is like a mistranslation or an error, but I wish he could ignore the buffs to resistance of the foe instead of ignoring the attack buffs of the foe, because attack buffs are pretty much irrelevant for Lewyn, because as long as you play him right, he's not going to be taking like any kind of damage in the player phase, and you shouldn't really leave him in the range of foes to begin with in enemy phase. So that kind of dull attack doesn't really help him too much. His Refine also has anti-synergy with the AoE Special Spiral builds because it requires the foe to be at 75% HP or above, and AoE damage is just going to be knocking the foe out of the range of that, so your Refine condition is just not going to be active. So the Blazing Wind, Special Spiral, and Flashing Blade build used to be pretty common on Lewyn, but it doesn't really have best synergy with this Refine. If you still want to run that, I guess you could go with the Attack Refine or Speed Refine maybe, but in general it's not really going to be worth it, and there are other mages who could do that kind of thing much easily, and Lewyn does get more things in exchange for losing the AoE builds, I guess. Now, Lewyn's Weapon Refine is pretty solid, but I guess I would have liked if he had Null Follow-Up Refine, because follow-up denial units are getting pretty common with those kinds of effects, and they are pretty much the biggest enemies of his because they can stop his follow-up attack. So having Null Follow-Up in his Weapon Refine would have allowed him to still run Special Spiral or Lot Speed Resistance or even running Wind Sweep, but I guess they didn't really want to make him too similar to Young Merrick, which is fair enough. But still, Null Follow-Up is the best lobby skill for him to get past those kinds of units who can stop his follow-up attacks. Lewyn can work pretty well on a budget build as well by having Susparo Sacred Seal and by just running his default build. Glimmer can work out, but Moonbow can also do the job against many of the bulky foes, especially if you're unmerged. And the second build is for Arena Assault, so you could run Luna or Moonbow, and you basically want to have Lancebreaker to check a lot of the plus 10 merged Lance units. The two main ones which I'm gonna be aiming for are gonna be plus 10 Brave Hector and plus 10 Brave Dimitri. These are two of the most annoying Lance units that you might face in Arena Assault. So Lancebreaker allows him to double him. In many cases, Legendary Dimitri at max investment is going to be very fast, and Hector does have that Weapon Refine that can stop the follow-up attacks of the enemies, so Lancebreaker is a pretty cheap solution to take care of these units, even if they are at plus and merge. As you could see, they are max invested with optimal skills, and they also have plus 6 buffs to all of their stats, and unmerged Lewyn can still take care of them in Arena Assault, thanks to the extra power and speed. Again, if he could ignore the resistance buff of these foes, that would help him in cases where these units might be on like a defensive tile or something like that. So that's just the nitpick which I was having. And finally, we have the high investment build. In my personal opinion, Life and Death is best slotted skill for Lewyn, now with the Weapon Refine. Because he has the penalty neutralization to his attack and speed, he doesn't really care increasing his visible like attack stat and speed stat, because he can basically attract chill attack and chill speed debuffs to himself and even Bright Shrine away from his allies, because he doesn't himself care about those debuffs on his attack and speed. So that's why Life and Death is pretty good, and the bulk reduction from this skill is a non-issue because, as I said, because of the Reverse Desperation Tome, he is going to be killing most of the things in 2 hits, and you're not really meant to leave him in the range of the enemies. So Life and Death is just the best lobby skill in my opinion. And Null Follow-Up, again, is the best lobby skill because it allows him to bypass units who can stop his follow-up attacks. Time Pulse is a really good option for Slot C, allowing him to have 1 turn Glimmer or 1 turn Moonbow or even 1 turn Ruptured Sky, and he could trigger that on his second hit with Forseti's Reverse Desperation. You could also use Susparo 3 and Lull Speed Resistance. The Reverse Desperation certainly frees up his Slot B skill to be run with a Lull skill like this, and Flashing Blade and Glimmer can be pretty nice with that. Flashing Blade 4 can also be run on Slot if you want to have some true damage. He's definitely really fast to utilize that. And you could also use him in Aether Raid's defense if you have a max investment Lewyn. He's definitely going to be a pretty powerful mage if he gets like a few Infantry Pulse charges and has like a pre-charged Moonbow or pre-charged Luna. And the reason why he's going to be a pretty good candidate for Aether Raid's defense is because he could check Brave Hector. The reason why I said check and not counter Brave Hector is for a reason, as you'll see. So with this build, having pre-charged Moonbow, he can easily take out low merch Brave Hectors, which is definitely pretty obvious. And he can also take out a max investment Brave Hector that has got +6 buff to all of his stats and is also summoner supported and has triple mythic setup, but he doesn't really have a support unit assisting him. So Lewyn can kill this kind of max investment Hector. However, the max investment Hector, who's usually gonna be accompanied by someone like Flame, is gonna be getting damage reduction, and even with pre-charged Luna, Lewyn cannot kill this Brave Hector. So that just goes to show you how ridiculous Brave Hector is if he's properly supported. Even such a powerful green mage with null follow-up is not able to kill him. So just keep that in mind, because I know many people who have invested Lewyn's are going to be using him on defense, because Brave Hector is a pretty big threat that you have to account for your Ether Raid's defense team. So just keep these things in mind. For most of the other Brave Hectors who are not like this optimized, he's going to be able to kill them. If you're missing Special Spiral in slot B, you could still run it, but have a better special like Dragon Fang, which can provide you with more damage output thanks to his high attack stat at +10 investment, so you could use that with Flashing Blade and Special Spiral.
Just so you know, I'd do whatever I could to help.
When Genny came to FEH, she brought a gift for all of the healers in the form of Wrathful Staff, which allowed them to have normal damage output like other units. And finally, our sheep has got the Weapon Refine. She has been long outclassed by a lot of units who have similar attack stat, so this Weapon Refine was much needed for a 5-star logged healer, especially when she faces competition from someone like Natasha in the normal summoning pool who has got the same attack stat as her and more stats and everything else. So Genny's Weapon Refine tries to capitalize on her two best stats, which is attack and resistance. It also gives her +3 attack, so it's essentially a 17 might staff, which is really good with her high attack stat. She still has the gravity effect, and she has got the built-in dazzling staff effect, which is really good. She already comes with Wrathful Staff, so this just combos up really well. And if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, or if she initiates attack, then her Weapon Refine can give her +5 attack and resistance, and this can work in both phases. And after the combat, she can restore 7 HP to allies within 2 spaces, and also herself. And this allows her to have fantastic synergy with the push skills. And push skills are basically going to be the best option for healers when it comes to being offensive. So that is really good. The self-sustainability is going to be fantastic with that, and also help support the allies. So Genny can hit really hard with this Weapon Refine. As you'll see, she can just casually reach like 70 attack if you invest heavily into her. But the only thing is that it doesn't really help her in the speed department. Genny does have a speed super boon, so if this could help her in speed, that would have been really good too. But for now, she's just going to be hitting very hard. Even on budget, Genny is really fantastic because she can hit hard by reaching 62 attack, which is really good for an unmerged healer that doesn't have an attack boon, and she can use attack res push all the time despite it only being a version 3 skill, which is usually not useful as compared to the tier 4 version. So even on budget, you could just run this kind of build and have a lot of fun with this, especially in Arena Assault. And if you want to heavily invest into her, then attack res push 4 is basically going to be the option that you can go for. John Drive attack can also be a very strong option that can give her even more damage output. And with this build, Genny is reaching 84 attack. So this sheep has got the strength of a wolf basically. Do not underestimate her. You could also use attack res unity on her slot A. Healers do have access to it, and that is really fantastic because attack and resistance are 2 of her most important stats. And if she gets debuffed on her resistance, which is going to be happening because of chill resistance, or even her attack stat, which is pretty high for a healer, she could definitely get targeted by chill attack. In that case, attack res unity can make her even more powerful, so this is gonna be an option. And because this works in both phases, you could even use her as a mage tank basically by having quick riposte. She can have 50+ resistance, and that is really good for tanking a lot of mages. Now granted, most of them are gonna be doubling you, and her low HP stack could be a problem, but still she can take not that much damage from many of the mages. She's one of the few units who can make use of Close Ward. I'm not a big fan of the skill honestly. As you could see, at max investment with summoner support, she reaches 30 defense, so you could even use like Close Foil if you want to, but I guess if you have Close Ward, this could be used to slay dragons. And Genny does have speed super boon. Now even though her weapon doesn't really help her in the speed department, she could still reach 55 speed with this kind of build. So if you want to invest heavily into Genny, I feel like going with speed is probably going to be much better, and she's just going to be able to double attack with her high attack stat, which is much more preferable. She could also be used in Aether Raid's defense as a restore trap unit with the help of maybe ground orders from Mirabilis or Triandra. Something like that can definitely help her. And once she gets danced after restoring a unit, she can definitely hit really hard with that ARD attack res that is going to be giving her extra 10 attack. And the double savage blow and the gravity effect can definitely be pretty annoying for the opponent. Overall, this batch did give us some pretty good and solid weapon refines, and the best weapon refine I guess out of this batch, the strongest one in my opinion, is probably Kinshi Hinoka's. She can support her allies and also have extra attack, bulk, so that just helps her a lot. And even as a one-off copy, she can be a pretty good unit for support and for slaying armor units. And now she's going to be even more fun to face in Hall of Forms, so look forward to that. But still, all of the weapon refines this time were really solid. Even Arden got a pretty nice weapon refine that makes him so fun. And Lewyn just got a really solid upgrade, and her sheep can hit even harder now, as you just saw. So let me know in the comments which of the weapon refines out of these 4 were your favorite, and which are you going to be refining. Make sure to share this video with your friends who are going to be investing into any of these units or are going to be refining any of these units. I do have a lot of build options in these videos, and I want to thank all of my YouTube members for their constant support. And if you enjoyed, then please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me tremendously, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as fast as Arden.
But I'm begging you, don't call me slow.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. But with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.